my first time making a video of any kind on this platform or any other. I am a puppeteer, singer, actor, pianist, and composer, and as such, I thought it would be a good idea to have a sort of social media presence. As such, I decided to make a short series, or it might be a long series, depending on how much patience I have, which is usually very little. A short series chronicling, basically my collection of marionettes, among other things. So I thought I would just do, a semi-regular video of just a couple marionettes and other types of puppets. So, I have here, this is a marionette by my mentor, my late mentor, Lewis Mahlmann of Children's Fairyland. This was a puppet he used to perform at the Detroit Institute of the Arts, among many other places. And this is one of his figures. He built this, probably sometime in the 1970s. So he tended to build his marionettes out of cloth. So the head on this is sculpted, most likely out of celluclay, which is what he used for most of his figures. I'll turn it to the side so that you can see him from that way as well. It's better to have him pull on this side, I see. And now he has a fairly interesting control, historically interesting, because it was once very common. Now I'm just going to sit him down here. This is his control. This is a control, I believe, designed by Helen Fling. Now, Helen Fling wrote 3 very popular books that were later condensed into one volume on making and manipulating marionettes. This is a standard control. He used these for a short period of time and then switched to a more simple control that he and a few of his friends designed. So basically there would be a run-through string that goes from one hand all the way through these screw eyes and down to the other hand. This controls the legs, so one string to the knee on each of these. And then on this one, this would go down to his head on both sides. On the back, you would have shoulders right here and a tail string going down to his bottom there. And now this is where things get really interesting because he's not by any means a standard puppet. I'm just having him a little lower than I did so that I can show you really his mechanism. Alright, so he has a string that goes up here, and the idea was that when you pull this, he would look up with this string here. I forgot to show you this. Right here he has this little rod, and this little rod, when you pull this rod, it actually pulls on a string that pulls up his chin so that he can look at the puppeteer. So Lewis would hold him, and Lewis had a watering can, and he has this flower here, so he would look up expectantly, as if to ask for water. It's Lewis, who's way up here. It looks rather weird from where I am. And Lewis would oblige and pour the water into here. And this string would pull, and the puppet would watch as the flower extended all the way to the top, and it grew throughout the show. Now, the difficult part in this situation is that once you've got this thing out, it is the most difficult thing you will ever do to get it back in, because you've got to really jam it down in there, and it's just a pain. So what I did was I painstakingly took a needle and thread and went all the way through and then tied it off here. See? That just runs through all of this and out the back. So on the back of his control, there's this string. This string goes through the flower pot and through the stem. So when you pull it, it retracts the stem. You can see it crumpling up the stem and pulling it inwards like that. And just makes it really easy and fast to preset the puppet. That's what we call it, presetting them. So that's really how you do that. He had a single string at his wrist to wave, which was a nice little effect because he could do that. But I wasn't happy. I didn't find it a particularly realistic movement, and I wanted more control over it, because then if I ever wanted him to raise his hand, all he could manage to do was, raise it like that, and I didn't want him to do that because it doesn't look particularly realistic if somebody were to gesticulate completely like this all the time. So, I added this string here, and now it also makes his wave more accurate because he can do this. And I can do that with a single hand too, which is what I'll normally have to do, but it's very awkward from this angle. So basically, as I was saying, he constructed his figures largely from fabric and what I'm assuming is kapok here. That's what it feels like anyway. And he's used this wonderfully 70s fabric. Now, doesn't that just look like camping trailer curtains? But I mean, he really did a lovely job costuming this. The level of detail is remarkable. You can see the head is joined at the body, right here with a screw eye. I'll move that back together, and he's used staples to get this onto the neck. That's interesting, shall we say. I believe he once had a feather or something sticking out of the top here, because you can see there's a little bit of white, and I've also stuck a pin here, because this is something else that I added to his repertoire. I'll move around so that you can see me presetting it. So again, what we call it in the puppetry business is we call it presetting the puppet. Is that you when it's a trick marionette, so a marionette that performs a specific generally one specific function that's meant to entertain the audience. Just by that, not a narrative puppet really. You have to preset them most likely, because whatever they do usually undoes the mechanism, and you can't repeat the act until you've done it again. So, I'm going to just get back in the frame. You can see I've pinned it together there. So, now what he would do is, and I'm going to stand up on the table, which you should never do at home because it's stupid, mostly. So, here's basically what would happen, is that he would look up, and I would, of course, oblige. And then, basically, you just lift this flower right on up, and he's looking up, and he's thinking, what the heck is happening? And then finally, when you get to the very top, you loop it over, and you take this other string, and you just go, and I will move it back down so you can see the effect of it. Bump! See there? The flower has completely unfurled. And I thought that was just a nice little touch to the act, because I always felt like it went up and then it didn't do something else. The reason it felt like it never did something else, I suspect, is because Lewis only ever used it as something throughout the show. So the puppet would leave, and then he would come back and the flower would grow some more. There were a series of hooks attached to the string, according to Randall Metz, who was entering Lewis's protege. So yeah, that's really the story of this marionette, and I'm going to bring out another one of Lewis's creations in a moment. So here is another puppet by Lewis. This is the cabin boy from a show he presented at Children's Fairyland in Oakland. He was the director of Children's Fairyland Storybook Puppet Theater for probably more than 40 years, I believe. And so, when he passed away in 2013, all of his puppets remained with the theater because he bequeathed them to his protege, Randall Metz, who is now the director of the theater. But one of the shows, which is what this is from, was parceled off to his friends. The puppets from it were. So I was, very, very pleased and honored to have gotten this one. And he's really a lovely example of Lewis's style that he adopted later in his career. They sort of call it the Polish style. So it's very, very simple, sort of round faces, the little round noses. Very cute. He's got these cute little eyes. This cute little mouth. He's very sweet, really. But he was, he's executed this fantastically but I wanted to show you the level of detail with which he could sculpt, because his stylistic talents really ran the gamut. So I'm going to bring that next. So here I am again with another charming specimen of the work of the great Lewis Mahlmann. Now this figure was given to me by Lewis himself. When I first went to his house, I think it was the second time we had met, really. I was invited over to his house to see his collection. He had a massive collection from all over the world, and it was truly one of the most remarkable things you could ever imagine. So this is a part of a very interesting story, actually. This is a doll, as you can see. It has no strings attached, and no means by which to move it. It's just a jointed figure, really. But he made these when he received a call from a woman who ran a hotel. Now, somebody had left a box of costumes from Italian marionettes in one of the hotel rooms. It had been a family Italian marionette troupe that had come through touring and had left this trunk of costumes there, and they were not able to reach them. So they called Lewis, and he came down and bought everything. He's purchased it all. So, and they're truly beautiful. I'll show you up close in a moment, because, I mean, it's some of the most immaculate, gold braid and everything that you really see on anything like this. So, he took these costumes and sculpted, a head for each one of them, and then cast these hands, which are just, lovely, and, put these fun little Venetian shoes on. It demonstrates his artistry so well. Here's the profile of the figure, and he's put these fantastic big sleeves on him and has drawn them together with a ribbon here. Now, although it looks like this is just a bow, he's actually tied it so carefully so that it will not come undone if you were to just tug on it. Now, here we have real metal sequins. All of this sequin work, none of this is plastic. This is, at least 100 years old. At least, this costume. And then, so he took this lovely thing, and you can see all the lace, everything is, it's fantastic. And he took these items and retailored them slightly to go onto these figures. And he made so many of these and put them in a huge trunk, and then they were sold when he passed away. And you can still find some on the internet. I see them every now and then. But this is really the first thing that I got of Lewis's. So yes, this is a little guy. He's very small, but he is just adorable. As Lewis continued to get older, it became more difficult for him to work, but he still did. He was producing marionettes right up until he died. His last show was, very soon before he died. And he died in his late 80s. So, here is a figure, and you can see he always used this wonderful old typewriter to write all of the Fairyland scripts with. And you can see he's used it for this as well. And so it says Fairy Tale Marionettes by Lewis Mahlmann, Oakland, California, and it says Aladdin on it. Which is, wonderful. And so he's just Aladdin with this little lamp right here. And you can see that instead of gluing the gem on, he's done something very interesting. On this little thing here, first of all, he's got all the sides sanded, so it's perfect like this wonderful little geometric shape. But he's also taken, drilled down in there, and then with hot glue, instead of gluing the thing on itself, glued on a looped thread, so it's double, so it's stronger. And then he looped it through the center, which is actually a little bead, so that if you tug on it, it will stay on there and it won't come off. So it's a lot sturdier this way. He's done some really fine stitching on the hat there. It's just a really, really lovely job. I'm going to get one more thing. which is a set of his designs for one of his shows. So I'm back, and I'm here with, this is Lewis Mahlmann's copy of Peer Gynt, by Ibsen. This is one of his later shows that he did at Fairyland, and it's this fantastic 60s book, but the book, while the illustrations are fantastic and very much up his alley, so to speak, he loved this sort of design, which I think is it's wonderful. Very simple and very complicated at the same time. It's almost perfect, you might say. Anyway, he has, at the start of this book, these wonderful items here. First of all, we have a script that was written on his typewriter, and you can see he's marked it up in his famously illegible cursive. And he has got, everything is really here. So that's all of the script and the revisions. Now we have something which I think is pretty funny. Somebody said, "This is what the world needs. Little Norway." Let's see, what does it say on the back? "A pioneer homestead which perpetuates the simple cultural values of our pioneer age." Okay, it's beautiful. You can see that. It's absolutely gorgeous. The Norway building is celebrating over 100 years in America. Yeah, my god, it's so pretty. Well, anyway, along with this, this, handsome Long's Drugs receipt from, a local drugstore, which was then converted into a CVS and no longer exists, we have photocopies of all of his set designs. This is the maypole scene in the town square. And I'm leaving these creases in because he did too. So, there we have that. And, we have the mill house, which is his house, Peer Gynt's house. The Troll King's throne. You can see these were all done in ballpoint pen, but he was a fantastic set painter. He was famous for organic textures. Now this is Peer Gynt's house at the beginning of the story. It's a terrible hovel. And the idea is that he's supposed to rebuild it, but he doesn't because he's a terrible person. And then he goes and is philandering and weird for the rest of the thing, and then comes back and everything is okay again. Don't ask me why. Oh, I like this description. Tree in the woods. But that's really another lovely, lovely piece there. I'll hold it up closer so you can see it. Here we are with sailing ship. Now the ship goes down, unfortunately, but it's actually okay because all the bad people die and all the good people survive. Now this is where things get good though. Here are his original pen and watercolor designs. Lizard and pig. Peer Gynt in fancy clothes, it says. And I know he's in fancy clothes because it says fancy clothes here. Asa, Peer's mother, from Peer Gynt. Here she is here, and the watercolor on this is so incredibly delicate on the outfit here. It's really just wonderful. Again, very simple Polish style. This was really the perfect show for him because it was that very simple Nordic style. Again, wonderful, wonderful designs here, and you can see he's put in a little shadow. You'll notice, actually, that these feet and legs are very similar in the way that they taper to those of Aladdin here. Very much, again, in that same style. And then Here's a fantastic one, the Troll King's Daughter. Now this is oh, look at that watercolor there, it's beautiful. This is a significant story for puppeteers, because in the 1920s and 30s, the Tatterman marionettes were very popular. And one of the most iconic marionettes of all time is the Tatterman version of the Troll King. And here, this is not the Troll King. And the reason we know it's not is because it does not say the Troll King. They're all helpfully labeled. So this says 2 trolls. This is one of 2 that were supposed to be made. But you can see he shadowed it wonderfully. And this is where the light hits it. I mean, it really displays his mastery of the medium simple as he is using it here. The simplicity is perfect. Here's Peer Gynt in his normal clothes, I'm assuming, because it doesn't say fancy clothes. Solving, it's right here. She's very pretty, and if you look at the watercolor work right there. I mean, it's so simple and it's masterful. Anitra, who turns out to be the Troll King's daughter in disguise, and she really has more beautiful work there. 2 female dancers, because when you've got 2 dancers, why design 2 when you could design 1 and make 2? So there we have it, and I mean, they all have such lovely details, because everything is so simple, but then it has an intricate pattern on it. Male dancer, I guess they didn't need to, I don't know why. Alright, now here's the pièce de résistance, the Troll King. This is very much inspired by the Tatterman Troll King, except this is simplified to be the, well, I guess the Polish Tatterman Troll King. So, I mean, here he is. He's magnificent with those antlers, and what I love about this is how he's done the beard. It's very subtle, you can hardly see it, but it makes the biggest difference. So that's a really lovely one. And then here's the button maker, who turns out to be the Troll King in disguise. And again, they all have these very similar feet to these ones here. Again, it's all part of Lewis's favorite style. Here we have the original script, and here is the sheet marking down where everything came from. Here's where all the musical cues are. Here is your car, why are fuel injectors better than carburetors, and how do I know if there has been a recall of my car? This is very important to Peer Gynt. Oh no, there's a European house thing on the back, never mind. Great games, great prices. Oh no, there's the European house thing over on the side there, and on the back. Look at that. See, he's gotten he always collected all the news things, every photograph, every single thing was always immaculately catalogued at Fairyland. And so everything has been digitized, and I mean, no matter how hard you try, you could not destroy all of the information that is there, because Randall has undertaken the task of making sure that all of it goes perfectly. Alright, I mean, that's wonderful there. It's very nice. And here, we have it. The Tatterman Troll King. The Tatterman marionettes created the Troll King in 1937, the article says. And as I am not a newspaper, I'm going to trust them on that. Here's a list of all the puppets. Oh, I love this. He's got checks, marks, and X's next to them, like I do when I do not have these. And then the total of males and females for an easy check to make sure he's got them all in case he goes on without some of them, I suppose. Here's just this, I guess I don't know what this is, some kind of big envelope. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and programs. God knows when this was presented. $1969. So another famous Lewis thing was to prepare for shows years before he would do them. 1966. So Peer Gynt on the Mountain must have been a sort of ongoing thing. 49th annual mountain play. That's remarkable. There we are. Some lovely Norwegian costumes here. And his address, in case you forgot it. Puppet show about trolls at Fairyland. Oh, that's a great byline. I'm sure he loved that. He's highlighted it. Let's see. Yeah, that's nice. Holding a 2-day Taste of Norway celebration with storytelling and magic shows at Fairyland. That's interesting. Alright. Now, here we have the original copies of the designs. Those were photocopies that I showed you before. And you can just see that he's done each of these in varying degrees of pencil and paper and whiteout and eraser, and I mean, he's really taken a lot of time with these. And then there's the back of the little Norway book with this lovely little sketch. Everything here is labeled. I really can't tell you why. It's just coincidence, I guess. The control stick of Bay Area Puppetry Guild newspaper. And I suspect he will have marked where his is. Yes, a visit with Lewis Mahlmann at Fairyland, right here. And there is Lewis right there. And on the back there are Lewis and Randall. And this is something from a photocopy of something from his other Norwegian show, The Troll King's Son. He had the heads made by Pam McIntyre, who was a frequent collaborator. And this was a note thanking her for it. He also says, Marie, David, and I are going to Hong Kong with the Platt in early February. So, I guess they were all going with Pat Platt, who is a San Diego-based puppeteer, I believe. And she makes lovely marionettes. Her particular style, though, is papier-mâché applied over a gourd, which is very unusual. But yeah, that's what I have to show you today, and I hope you enjoyed the video.